Welcome to the C-Suite Mentor, the place where you will learn the tools, strategies, and mindset to scale your business sustainably and build a lasting legacy. I'm your host, Theresa. As a fellow CEO, I understand what it takes to scale a business to 7 and multiple 8 figures. It's not necessarily what you might think. It requires a complete shift in how you think, strategize, and execute key actions in your business. My mission is to help CEOs step back into the driver's seat of their business by optimizing their operations, empowering their team, and staying in total alignment with their big vision. So, are you ready to exchange everything that hasn't worked for strategies that will? You're in the right place, so let's go. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the C-Suite Mentor Podcast. I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Gap in the Gain. It's a great book. We're going to be talking about the gap in the gain today, but if you read the book, we're not going to talk about it in the way that the book talks about it. We're going to talk about it from the standpoint of something that a lot of economists are seeing, something that a lot of business experts are seeing, and something that really that I've seen with people that I work with or people that I've been talking to is this gap that we're seeing between employee and employer. And this is something that if you've been following me, I am writing my first leadership book, and this is actually something that I address in the book. This is real life. I apologize for the dogs barking, but so it's this gap between, like I said, between employer and employee. And this gap has led to a lot of different things in the job market. It has led to a lot of different things that have happened with businesses. So I'm going to break this down for you we're going to talk about customer experience or employee experience and the 3 different experiences that we need to create. We're going to talk about what has happened because of this gap between employee and employer, or employee and your team and leadership, and then some things that you can do to improve it. So let's start with the 3 types of experiences that we build for employees. So the first one is what I call, it's when we're hiring people and we're trying to attract people. That is the captivating phase, okay, or the captivating experience. And that's how what we do to try and entice people to come work with us. All right. It could be just, what we do to post on social media. It could be during the interview phase. How do we, when we're interviewing somebody, what questions do we ask? What types of packages we put together to entice people to come work for us? Benefits packages, whether it's health insurance, life insurance, dental insurance, 401ks, we have a retirement package. What does all of that look like? And what do we want that experience to look like when someone is interviewing for a position in our company, or someone is looking at our company on our website and thinking, "Ooh, I want to go work for that person." So that's number 1. And I think during that experience, that captivate experience, I think what happens is first of all, employers and leaders are very unclear as to exactly who they need for a specific role that they're hiring. And I've talked about this on previous podcasts where employers and leaders are using an old playbook for hiring people that we used many, many years ago. It does not work in today's world. It does not work with people today. It does not work with employment today. And I apologize if you hear my dog squeaking her toy. So what we want to do is, first of all, we want to get super clear on who it is that we're hiring for a specific role. And I think when we're not clear, when people aren't clear about who they really need to hire, they end up either mismatching an interviewee with a role that they need, or they end up promising things for what the job would look like. And in reality, that's not really what the job is. So I think that having that lack of clarity as far as who you really need in that role is one of the main problems. And like I said, that leads to promising things that you can't necessarily keep, or that really isn't part of the job. Or also, it leads to really bad hiring. It leads to, I have seen that people are very good interviewees, and then when you hire them, they're not so great. So the clearer we are as leaders as far as who we need in a specific role, the better we're going to be able to ask questions during the interview, and not just about hard skills, but about those soft people skills, so that we can figure out whether or not someone is really good for a position. I think also on the other side, I think that the people that are coming into the workforce, the recent college graduates, I think that they have a level of expectation as far as where they're going to, what kind of a job they're going to be able to land, and what they're going to be able to make, and not really having a clear idea as far as what's going on in the world out there. I also think that, and then how to match it with, I've talked to candidates, to employees, people who are interviewing, and they're looking for $200,000 as a starting salary in an entry level position. And it's like, there's definitely a gap and a mismatch there. So I think that, and we're not going to talk about that part of it, but I definitely think, again, the clearer we are as far as who we need in a specific role, and what that role looks like, and the clearer we are on what we're capable of offering, we're going to be able to interview people better and be able to weed out those people who are really good interviewees and don't really fit the position that we have in our business. I think the other thing that also goes along with this that I have seen people do is they need an entry level position, and they jam pack all kinds of stuff into this entry level position. I've seen it a lot with marketing. I've seen where people are looking for someone, an entry level person, to create and plan social media content, do social media strategies, create and plan marketing campaigns, create and plan, advertisements, do ads for Facebook and Google, and then also do funnel building. And they want all of that into one entry level position. And it's a lot jammed into one thing. So again, these people are coming out of college and they're applying for entry level positions and don't have all of those qualifications. So they're struggling to find jobs. And I think that why employers, or what I've seen, why employers are doing this, or why leaders are doing this, is because there's been a lot of job cuts. There's been a lot of cost reductions. And I think there's from the company is being sent to me, and some random person is copied on the invoice. So I sent an email back to my contact and said, I don't understand why this random person is copied on my invoice. So now this person that looks like it's from another business knows what we're paying for this particular trade show, and I don't think that's right. And he came back to me and said, I'm so sorry. We've outsourced a lot of our billing and accounting, and we've had a lot of these mistakes. I see it a lot. Businesses want to outsource a lot of key functions, and they want to outsource because they want it done better, but they don't. Number one, they either don't have a process set up or it's a broken process. So instead of fixing it first, what do? They just outsource it and think that the problem's going to go away, and it doesn't. So again, they've outsourced these things. They've cost cut, they've downsized, they've had to go through layoffs, but they still need work done. And this is the problem when you lay off, when you get rid of marketing and you get rid of good people, is that now you're like, ooh, we have these jobs that need to be done. And then you try and pack everything into, like I said, an entry-level job, and someone doesn't have the experience and people struggle to find employment. So it's really crazy because so if we're just talking about this captivate phase, instead of looking at our business and saying, okay, who do we need in these roles? Where do we have redundancy? And then cutting back on costs that really we don't need, or like I said, are redundant. Figuring that out first, looking at our business and saying, what have we done to overcomplicate these specific areas? And then redoing our processes and making things simpler. Instead of doing that, which would solve some of these issues, businesses, like I said, have just, they've outsourced, they've cut, and then now they want to backfill and hire for 3 jobs in one. So looking at this, the first thing that we can do is look at, okay, who do we need in these roles that we're interviewing for in this phase? What do our packages really look like right now? And getting super clear on that before actually going through with that hiring process. And being transparent in the hiring process as far as what the job is going to look like. If you do need to hire for like a role and a half, being super clear on what that is going to look like and being super upfront with that during that interview process, which a lot of people, they just want to get somebody in the door. So they either aren't clear with that, they're not honest with it, they give misinformation, and then it ends up turning into a disaster once the person is hired. And I think this happens a lot more now than ever. I did read an article in Forbes magazine where they were talking about during COVID, during the pandemic, employees were super happy because employers and leaders within business owners were much more transparent about what was happening and what they were going to do and what the plans were and all of that. And now, because of cost cuts, because of the economy the way that it's been, because of layoffs, they've become less transparent about really what the situation is in the business. And that, again, is causing this gap between leadership and their team. So one of the first key things when I work with people that we talk about is clarity and communication. Super important. Clarity and communication. People want to understand what's happening. Do you need to get down to the nitty-gritty details in a lot of things? Not necessarily. But you do want to be clear and transparent so that people understand what's expected of them and really what's happening. So I digress. That is the first phase, okay, or the first experience where we're starting to see these gaps. The second experience is the educate phase. And this is when someone actually becomes an employee. And I like to tell people it's like the first 3 years until they kind of get the onboarding done. They get a really good feeling as far as their role, what they need to do, what needs to happen, what's going on in the business, all of the above. And that's the second, this is the second experience that we create. And again, what I have seen is that lack of clear communication. That lack of clear communication as far as, all right, when I was hired, this is what you said I was going to be doing. And then when they're hired and they get into these first phases, they're not necessarily doing exactly what they thought they were going to be doing. Or they were promised certain things and then stuff hasn't materialized. Okay. And I've seen this where management and leadership will say, we're going to have so many meetings. We're going to have meetings to go over goals. We're going to have meetings to go over this. We're going to have meetings to go over that. And then they never do it. Or they start going through their process to get someone trained, to get someone up to speed, to really get them integrated into the business. They start it and then it ends up falling by the wayside. And then the employee is frustrated and disgruntled and doesn't have clarity on really what they're supposed to do. And then they either leave or they keep going, and then you end up having a toxic environment. So with this gap, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have our processes really set in place, our training process, our onboarding process, and making sure that we are consistently communicating, consistently connecting with our employees, because this is what ends up happening. All right. And this is a big piece that's in this book that I'm going to be writing on leadership and really building a healthier culture. So we've let go of communicating and being transparent with our employees since COVID. All right. So we hire people, we have unrealistic expectations. Their expectations and what's actually reality do not match. And what happens is that the old framework or the old way that things work is employees start to see, or they believe, that their worth in a business is based on the amount of hours they work plus their individual effort. So how much effort they put into it, how much they're willing to sacrifice, and the number of hours that they work. And then that will equal the business's success. And that's what they see. But employees, because things have changed in the world, people want better quality of life. People want authentic connection. They want communication. They want to know that you care. So people see that my worth as an employee, and I've had people and clients of mine over the years that have said to me, the only way that I will get ahead is if I work 10-hour days, or I take on special projects that I know I'm going to have to work weekends. But that's where my value is. My value is based on the work that I do. And to me, that is just mind blowing. So that is how a lot of businesses function, is in that framework of, I will pay you more. I will give you a bonus if you work a lot, if you work more hours. It's dependent upon how many hours you work and the amount of individual effort you put into the business, because individual effort plus those hours equals the business's success. And the way that I look at it, and you can see where this gap is coming, because again, people want better quality of life. People want to know that they matter as a person. They want to know that that what they're putting into the work and the effort and the things that they're doing is a collective effort. It's not just about, well, I want to get ahead, or and then we step all over everybody. So the framework that I see is worth is based on who you are, and your worth, your value to us is based on who you are and how you show up every day. I always tell people I will take someone who has drive, someone who cares, and someone who is passionate about the business over someone who is a really good salesperson but has a really bad attitude. I would take the first person any day. So what I see is that someone's self-worth or their worth in a business, their value in a business is based on who they are, how they show up. And from there, we're able to bring out each individual's greatness in the business. And we're able to understand where their strengths are when we do that. Because when they're showing up authentically and they're showing up as their best self, we're able to see or help them pull out the greatness in who they are. And then that plus an aligned effort. So that aligned effort is we're pulling out their greatness. We're pulling out their individual strengths and what they're super, super good at. And then we see how that then aligns with the purpose of the business. So when we do that, we invest in our people to pull out their greatness. We align that with what it is that we're trying to accomplish because we're super clear on it. And then what happens is the individual is successful and the business is successful. So that is what I believe is going to help to start to close the gap. And you'll start to see this with when we're trying to go from that education phase of someone just becoming an employee and being there for like the first 3 years to an elevation experience, which is how do we develop our people? A lot of businesses believe that elevation is about giving people more money. Elevation is about giving people a bonus based on solely whether or not a business makes its numbers, which to me is a broken strategy. That is your worth is based on the work that you do, the number of hours that you work. Okay, so your effort plus your hours, and that equals the business's success. Instead of looking at it and saying your value is based on who you are and how you show up. And when you show up that way, you become a team, like you're part of the team. And when everybody on the team is showing up, then we can figure out where the greatness comes from in each individual person. And when we do that, we can align each person's individual greatness and strengths with the purpose of what needs to be done. And then collectively, the business succeeds, and individually, each person succeeds. So when we get to that elevate phase, which is how do we continue to develop them, we already have these things in place, and they are already invested in the success of the business because the business is invested in them. And that's how we start to close the gap. So what can we do? Like I said, people have had cost cuts, people have had layoffs. AI has replaced a lot of things, or people are using AI to replace a lot of things and using it incorrectly. So now people are backtracking, and again, we're not fixing the gap. We're not figuring out where that gap is and how can we fix that gap? How can we fill that gap and change from that old way of thinking and that old framework to the new framework of really figuring out how do we pull the greatness out of each individual person. How do we get clear on the role that we need, not necessarily the responsibilities that someone's going to have, but the role that we need to fill, and how do we identify that greatness? See if we can extract it and make sure that everyone's working in their strengths, and then collectively we can all succeed. So the 4 things that you can start to do to start to look at this and see if you have a gap between your employees and you as the employer, or you as the business owner and your leaders in your business, or the leaders in the team. And it always comes down to a lack of communication, a lack of accountability, and a lack of integrity. Those are the 3 things that it comes down to. Lack of communication, people don't know how to communicate, or they don't want to have those hard conversations and be transparent about, this is what's really going on. This is the state of the state, or this is what's really happening with you. This is what we want to do to help you, but we also need you to come the other way and help yourself. So again, the business invests in the employees invest back in the business. And that's how we start to close the gap. And this is also what I like to say is, this is how we start to humanize the business. So the first thing is investing back in your employees, really figuring out, businesses want to throw around core values. And I talk about core values a lot, but they talk about it, but then they don't live it. They don't intertwine or interweave your core values within the business. So then what happens? We're saying one thing and we're not doing it. All right. So, and this goes along with I'm going to come back to invest in employees in a second. This goes along with the staying in integrity. Whatever we say we're going to do, whatever we believe in, whatever we say that, that is interwoven into our business or what we stand for, then we better freaking live it. We better live it, and we better give it. So if we say we're going to do something, if you say you're going to have a strategy session every month, you better have that strategy session every month. If you're going to say that we're having an open discussion in Q&A with the business owner every month, you better have that session every month. And a lot of businesses don't do that. They say they're going to do these things. They say they're going to develop their people, and then they don't do it. So we want to make sure that, number 1, we're staying in integrity. Now let me go back to investing in our people. We want to invest back in our employees. And what does that look like? It could look like something more tangible, where we're going to figure out how to do an employee retirement package. We're going to figure out how we could offer benefits. And if your business doesn't have that kind of cash, that's okay. How do we invest back in our employees? There is so much out there to help people to develop their skills, to have a higher level of skill mastery. It might mean going back to your vendors, okay, and seeing if any of them have any kind of training that you can get your employee involved in so that they can up-level their skills. I have clients who have food purveyors, where they offer free training constantly with their chefs to teach chefs in their customers' facilities how to up-level their skills. I have clients who have retail stores where their vendors will do the same thing. They will educate the employees of the business to really help them to have a higher level of skill mastery. When you invest in your people, it doesn't necessarily need to be something that's going to cost you a lot. What it needs to be is something that's going to help them up-level their skills, help them to feel better about what they're doing in their role, and to have that skill mastery, but also to have higher levels of autonomy in your business. Those are the key elements when you're investing. Yes, is it investing back in your employees where you can give bonuses? Absolutely. Or you can do a profit share? Absolutely. Or you can offer health insurance? Absolutely. But if your business doesn't have that, there's other ways that you can do it. There's other ways that you can invest back in your employees. simply by having a coffee meeting, coffee talk, or a coffee talk with the owner. That's investing back in your employees, letting them know that you care what they have to say, you care about the concerns that they have, and you're going to try and address them. The third thing is reinforcing your vision all the time. People set a vision just like they set core values, and then they forget it. It's like set it and forget it. So if you go into a business and you ask someone, what is the mission of the business? Or you ask them, like, what is the vision that the business has? I think 90% of the time when I've asked people that question, they don't know what it is. So we want to make sure that we're consistently reinforcing and reiterating what that vision is, what the mission is, and what the core values are. And then that integrity piece kicks in, where we take those things, the mission, the vision, the core values, and we interweave that in everything that we do in the business. We interweave it into processes, we interweave it into interactions that we have, meetings that we have, trainings that we have, whatever that looks like, it gets interwoven into everything. And people are invested in it. They're invested in the vision. It's when you talk to them about it and you make them part of co-creating it, it helps them to have higher levels of ambition and motivation and desire to do their job better. And again, that goes back to how the person shows up, who they are as a person versus simply, what can you do for me? The last one is setting goals. This is how we get to hold people accountable. So setting goals and helping people, like meeting with them regularly to make sure that they're consistently moving those goals forward. When people see that you care about what their goals are, you care about what they want to achieve, what their dreams are, what their ambitions are. When they see that you care about that, they want to be invested. And you can match whatever those goals are and those ambitions are with whatever the ambitions and the goals are for the business. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. And again, this is not 1980s business where it's what can you do for me and what can you sacrifice for me. This is about how we can collectively be successful so that individually we can be successful. And that's the difference. So when we start doing these things, when we embrace this new framework, when we look at each one of these experiences, the captivate, how do we bring people into our business? The educate, how do we get them trained and up-level their skills? And then how can we elevate them and consistently develop them? When we focus on that and we see where are we falling short with our employees and what can we do better? How can we communicate better? How can we connect deeper? And how can we make sure that we understand each other and we're aligned? That's how we're going to close that gap. That's how we can make sure that, just as much as customers can be raving fans, we want to make sure that our employees are. Because if you remember, your customer experience starts on the inside, not the outside. So when we do these things, we can invest back in our employees. We can stay in integrity and make sure that what we say we're going to do, we're going to do. We can stay organized. We can simplify what's happening in the business and make sure that everybody is streamlined. Things are running like a well-oiled machine. People are achieving goals. And guess what? Everybody achieves more. The business can be more profitable. People can be happier. People can have more freedom of time, energy, thought, money, and everybody wins, right? Everybody succeeds. So take a look at your business and see, do you have a gap between leadership and the team, between leadership and the employees, between the business owner and the employees, and how can you start to close that gap? This, when we align together leadership and that experience and the team, and we can align everything together and we close that gap between everything, that's how we can start to build a very humanized, people-centered culture. So I hope you liked this episode. And until next week, and thank you for putting up with my barking dog. I hope we all take care of each other just a little bit more than we already do. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye for now. Hey there. Thank you so much for listening. If you found value on the show, please follow the podcast so you never, ever miss an episode. And I would love, love, love if you would leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify for me. Even better, share the show with a fellow business owner ready to step fully into their CEO leadership role. Because right now, more than ever, the world really needs next level leaders. And by the way, did you know you can text me all your questions and get real-time feedback? You absolutely can. Just text the word CEO to me at 610-215-2838 to get connected. One last goodie for you before I go. If you're ready to scale your business and have a co-creator working right by your side, my C-Suite Mentor Program may be perfect for you and your possible new second in command. Just visit thecsuitementor.com to get started.